Good day and welcome to this Friday segment of A Week at the Plot. And I've decided I'm going to get these brassicas in. So these are going to go into the bed where we took out the blighted tomatoes last week, was it, or earlier this week? I'm sort of forgetting when I'm doing things at the moment. But yeah, these are going to go into that bed. I did give it a good water yesterday, though having had a look at it today, it still feels or seems quite dry. But once these are in and they're healed in firmly, because brassicas like to be nice and firm, I will give them a really good drenching. There's 2 lettuce in here as well, which just volunteered themselves. The plants, so that will come out. The plants are pretty decent. You can see most probably about, I don't know, 8 inches tall, something like that, from base to tip. Pretty strong. I did notice here we've got 2, and they are the same height, but you can most probably see they're a little bit more spindly. But if we can separate them, then, you know, all's good. And these get quite tall, so we really want to make sure that they're firmly planted, because as they have such a big leaf and quite a lot of leaf, because these don't form a cabbage like a pointed cabbage or a round cabbage. These are much more like big kale leaves. They do get top heavy, a bit like Brussels sprouts can, and therefore we want to make sure that when we have winds in the winter, these aren't pulled out of the ground. I mean, they most probably will need to be staked when they get larger, but let's have a look at the bed where some of these are already in, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm just squatting down and you can see that these 2 Portuguese cabbage in front of me are most probably about 4 foot tall from base to tip, and you can see there's not much on the stalk down below, so windrock is really something we need to think about when planting up what I'm planting out now. So yeah, that, you know, the wind can really take the top of those and knock them over. So it's good to be wary of that. And then if I come around here, I'm still on a handheld non-tripod thing. So it might be a bit more wobbly. If we come around here, this is the cross of Nero di Toscana and Portuguese cabbage. And maybe if we look at these leaves, you can see how large they are. So there's my hand. The leaves are large and are absolutely lovely. They're really, really good. But one crossed with Nero di Toscana a few years ago. And if we come over here, you can see how crinkly these leaves are. So we've got the crinkle of the Nero di Toscana, which is very much a blade leaf, with the sort of larger leaf of the Portuguese cabbage, and it tastes really good as well. These 2 I'm letting go to seed. We've got 2 here. I'm letting these 2 go to seed, so they'll go to seed most probably next year, and we'll collect seed from them as long as we're still here, of course. But yeah, you can see in the leaf, it's got the sort of dinosaur kale bumps, if you like. Look up here, of Nero di Toscana and its close relation Cavallo Nero. It's got that sort of crinkle, not quite as pronounced, obviously, because what it has done is it's taken on some of the size of the Portuguese cabbage. So basically, this Portuguese cabbage leaf has hardly any crinkle whatsoever. It's virtually flat. And it's crossed with a sort of crinkly leaf Nero di Toscana, so I say similar to Cavallo Nero. and we've got a slightly smaller leaf. So if I put my hand there, you can see it's sort of hand sized rather than larger than hand sized, but more of a crinkle. So yeah, that's rather sweet. So what I'm going to do now is lay out those modular sown brassicas into this bed. So I've been really quite cheeky on space. We've got 5 down the centre of this bed, 4 down either long side, and then over there are 2 others in another bed. And all I'm going to do now is make a hole with my hand fork. You could use a hand trowel if you want to, but I'm using a hand fork. I tend to like using a hand fork in rougher soil beds, and a what do I just say, trowel in sort of softer. So where it's softer, I generally use a trowel here, but these I'll be using a hand fork. But yeah, I'm just going to make a hole a little deeper than the depth of the cells. So if the cells there are, let's say, 4 inches, I'm most probably going to plant them 1.5 inches, maybe even 2 inches deeper. Again, that's about really stabilizing these brassicas into the soil that they're going to be growing in. I won't be doing that with turnips and beetroot and things like that, but brassicas, the sort of cabbage type brassicas, not swede but cabbage type brassicas, that's what you want to do with them. They really need to be stabilized and firm in the compost stroke soil in which they're growing. So yeah, these are going to go in about 1.5 inches to possibly 2 inches deeper than the depth of the module. So the depth of the dark compost that you can see. That's these now planted out. As I say, about 1.5 inches, 2 inches deeper than the depth of the compost in the module. And then really firmed in. And when I say firmed in, I really mean sort of putting your hand down around and pushing, really firming the plants in. The better they can be firmed in, the better they're likely to grow. And of course, I'm doing this mid heat wave. It's a muggy 30 degrees, I think, today, 29, 30, something like that. And these all need a really good water. So I'm going to give them a good water, which you've seen me do before. And then I'm going to net these that I've just put in now. Those have all been watered, given a really good watering, and have now been netted, as you can see, with bricks holding them down at the side. And I'll give them another good water now before I go home. I've just been down here for about an hour. I just wanted to get this job done. And there's plenty of give here. Look. So there's plenty of give for them to grow. It's literally just draped over. It's not tight across the brassicas. There is headroom, if you like, loose headroom for those brassicas to grow. And someone was saying to me a good few months ago, does water go through your coverings? And in most cases, yes, water will go through. I mean, this is just a thin net. The scaffold net is obviously netting, so if you water through it, it will water through it. Fleece, some water will get through. You do get some sort of thicker fleece. One of our fleece tunnels, which we may use to do lettuce, that is less permeable. So when I did overwintering lettuce a couple of years ago, I did take the fleece off a couple of times over about 4 or 5 months, something like that, just to see how the the soil was below, and on one occasion I gave it a watering. But yeah, most netting, well, I think all netting will be permeable, and most fleeces, enough water will get through. But depending upon your climate, you know, it's always best to check, because if you don't get decent rainfall in the winter, but you need to cover things in fleece to try and keep them warmer, then you may need to take that fleece off to give things a little water. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you again very soon for another segment of A Week at the Plot. Bye. Good day, with what's forecast to be one of the hottest days of the year. I've made sure that these brassicas that we put in yesterday are watered really well again, and the leeks we put in earlier in the week and things that we'd seeded. So yeah, but you can see by the drooping of the leaves, of these squash leaves, which is perfectly natural, that's trying to conserve water in the leaf, that it is really hot for us in the UK, well, and in London particularly, maybe at the moment. And I think, as you can see, this squash is developing really well. I think this one has died back. Can you see here? Let me just take it off. That's died. This has rooted in. This leader has rooted in. And if we come over here, I sort of feel that one's not developing either. So I think what I'm going to do is cut this one back to here to make sure that all the energy goes into developing this one. Yeah, Vivi suggested these are possibly cream of the crop. Izzy suggested that maybe mashed potato. I don't know which they are, but I'm glad to have them. There's quite a few developing down there, can you see, in the shade. One more uchiki curry over there. This one, whatever it is down here. But that's our squash for the year. So I think I'll be trimming some of that growth over there back as well. Our sunflower is proving to be rather gloriously multi-headed. Not quite like the proliferation of flowers we had on that one, on the other plot I had about 4 years ago. But lovely to see, and of course, you know, being enjoyed by bees, and up here is a honeybee enjoying that one. But this hot weather is meaning that the beans are drying back quite quickly. Some of the runners are still green, as you can see. But what I had been hoping to do this week is to harvest these all, which are Madeira Maroon. I've been wanting to harvest these demi-sec, i.e. semi-dry, but actually there's very few now that haven't gone over to a dried bean. Up here, this bean here is still soft, as is this one inside. I mean, the bean pod is soft and not dried, so maybe we'll get a few demi-sec, but I think tomorrow I'm going to harvest these all dry, which is fine. But my job today is also harvesting beans, and it's harvesting these here. Hopefully you can see those in the sunlight. Here, here, here. We've got some others over here on the other side of the marjoram. These are Rocquencourt, and this side of the beam frames has not been shaded at all, well, hardly at all, because of the way the sun goes around. And I've let these dry because these we are going to save for growing on in future years. These at the front, I think there's about 8 plants here in total, did really, really well, were very prolific in beans, as you can see, particularly sort of this one here. Some of these and these I did harvest, but yeah, I'm just going to pick these now, and I'll go through the process of what I'm going to do with them afterwards. They look quite nude now because they have had their pods harvested. So here are all the pods, and inside these are our little black beans that we'll have a look at. And this really is such a fabulous bean, Beurre de Rocquencourt. You eat it as a pod and it's wonderfully yellow and buttery. It really is gorgeous and so easy to grow. Then inside each of these pods, crack them open, you can see your beans. Black jewels. That one there hasn't fully developed. But yeah, these which are, gosh, my hand is glistening. Let me get them glossy and black. That's what we're going to be keeping for sowing another year. It is a hot one. I think in the shade it's about 31 degrees. It's 41.9 at the moment in the shed, and it's saying that its top temperature has been 51.3. So that must have been when the sun was directly behind the thermometer here in the shed. So here's our Beurre de Rocquencourt bean seed harvest for seed saving for growing again in future years. So I haven't done this side of the marjoram that I was pointing to, but I've done the side that you saw me harvest, and any that weren't shiny or plump I've discarded, and I've sifted through, and I think we've got 140 seeds in here from those 4 plants. So hopefully that will give us, we've got another 6 plants this side, so 140, 240, 280, 350 seeds maybe from those plants, which would be absolutely fantastic. And of course you can rehydrate these and boil them and put them into soups and stews and things like that as well, but these will be for seed saving. So I'll take them home. They are pretty dry already, but I'll just leave them with the lid of the jar off for the next couple of weeks at home to make sure that they do dry out completely. I would sometimes lay them out on a plate, because obviously a greater surface area, if you spread them out, they won't be stacked. I don't think I'll do them with these because they are so dry. However, after 2 weeks, I'll then put the lid back on. Well, unlane them and put a piece of paper with the name on in the jar first. Then I'll put the lid back on. Then this will go into our freezer for 3 or 4 days, and then it will come out of the freezer and go straight into our fridge. The reason it goes into the freezer is to make sure any bean fly or anything that might have got into these seeds is killed with that freezing. So yeah, looking forward to future harvests with these. And as I say, they really are a fantastic bean. They're lovely. And of course, all of the pods, which are themselves bone dry, these will be going into our compost. You may have heard of greens and browns with compost, or wets and dries. These are obviously wet or browns in terms of compost, and I'll do a sort of segment on that maybe when we look at our compost in a month or so's time. But that's it for this bit of Beurre de Rocquencourt seed saving, and that's it for this week's A Week at the Plot too. We have our summer barbecue at the allotment tomorrow. The utensils, barbecue utensils, and the barbecues are all clean and prepared for that. And even though we're 10 days into autumn now, it is our summer barbecue, which we normally have mid-August, but we thought to have it mid-September because there's always people away mid-August. So yeah, so hopefully it will be a good day. It certainly looks as though it's going to be another hot day, and yeah, we might have some thunderstorms later, it says, but who knows? As I say, who can rely on a weather forecast? Right, I am leaving it there for this week's A Week at the Plot on this rather hot Saturday afternoon. It's hotter than I thought. It feels hotter than I thought it was going to be, for sure. But look, I've got a couple of jobs done. I still need to water the squash bed for a second time. I gave it a really good water when I arrived, but I want to give it another one before I go. Then it will be home to rehydrate myself from the sweat that I have lost. And yeah, we will see what next week brings. We will see what next week brings. I think it will start warm like it is now, but it will tail off, I think. Anyway, whatever is going on at your garden, your growing space, or your allotment, I hope it is going well. I hope whatever the temperature is, it's either just right or you're bearing with it and your allotment is bearing with it too. I will see you very soon for more A Week at the Plot, and in the meantime, happy growing. Bye.